In Conversation with Terry Shepard, award-winning broadcaster, narrator, and author. A deep dive into the writer's craft with the artists and support systems who create the stories we love.
Today, we're joined by an author who's proving that crime fiction only gets better with seasoning. At 65, Jenny Dandy has launched the Houses of Crime series with the novel The Brownstone on East 83rd, a twisty, clever mystery that has already earned high praise from some of the best in the business. In The Brownstone on East 83rd, an FBI agent goes undercover believing he's in control until he meets Isabel Anderson, a woman with secrets and schemes of her own. With a butler, there's always a butler who knows too much. And a plot full of unexpected turns and twists, this book is a must-read for mystery lovers. Jenny Dandy, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
You and I are in the same era of life, and people say, wow, you were a debut author at 65. That almost seems like an insult. I'm sure you've been thinking about writing for much of your adult life.
Yeah, absolutely. I always considered myself a writer, but lots of other things got in the way, and I think I was intimidated by all of it, it's not good enough, nobody will read it, whatever. And then I got through all three kids and my husband's business, and then it was time to turn to writing. And I think the age, you let go of so many things that keep you from saying I'm a writer. And I think that just allowed me to start producing. And then I also took a lot of classes. There's a place in Denver called the Lighthouse Writers Workshop, and they have fabulous classes and a program called the Book Project, which is a 2-year program with a book length project. And so you get a full read by your mentor. And that just completely changed my book and made it a book. So that was so I just did all kinds of things to try to learn how to do this right. And hopefully I did learn.
What drove you to want to do this?
Or one thing is, I guess everybody has that first really bad book that's in the door, but right. I think I've changed so many computers since then that thankfully it's disappeared. But you do that, and then you go, oh, I know something's wrong with it. I don't know what. And then I stopped writing for a while because I knew it was so bad. And then I started exploring a manipulative narcissist. I just wanted to try to understand how a person can be a manipulative narcissist, and also why I didn't spot them when they were in my orbit. And then Isabel was born. And hopefully, when I first did the book, she was supposed to be my main character, which you can't have because true narcissists are just shells. They're empty inside. So then Ronnie was born. And then through the book project, I realized that she had to be the villain. And hopefully I've gotten across that sort of manipulation and the narcissism, because so much, of course, had to be cut because she wasn't a point of view character and she wasn't the protagonist, she was the antagonist. That started that. And I guess as I was thinking about it, I thought, well, she's got to manipulate for something other than just her own pleasure. And so I thought, of course, she has to be a con woman. But then if you have a con woman, you have to have an FBI agent or somebody, some sort of law enforcement. And so then Frank came along. But then when Isabel became the villain and not a point of view character, Frank and Ronnie had to be eventually paired up.
Ronnie fascinated me, from the androgynous nature of the name to the androgynous nature of the character.
It's actually Ronnie's a she, but she's androgynous, so she can go either way. And for Isabel's purposes, she wanted Ronnie to be, nobody understood whether she was a girl or a boy. And Ronnie always said that it was easier. She was homeless before the book opens. And she said that when she had to steal, she only wanted to ever steal when she had to. It was easier to disappear if she were dressed like a guy. And Ronnie had to come along because somebody had to tell Isabel's story because Isabel couldn't do it. All she was doing was looking at herself in the mirror. And I don't know. Ronnie just developed. This book went through so many different iterations that I got to know the characters really well. And so I don't know, just Ronnie, I just knew Ronnie had a hard life, and then Isabel was going to give her a soft place to sleep.
There was some distance between my reading of the book and our conversation, and I have to admit that I had a hard time remembering if Ronnie was a he or a she.
Oh, great. Oh, I love it. I love it. She grew up, she had 3 brothers that were all older, and her mother died when she was young, and she just got all their hand-me-downs. And so she just is, I'm just who I am. I don't care. And this is easy.
So how did you learn the process of writing?
There's all different kinds of aspects to process. I think that I've always paid attention to how books are put together, and I've always listened to authors. Like, I think I was 14 when I read that Hemingway always ended the day knowing where he was going to start the next. And so I think just all my life, I've gathered all these little tips. And I remember, I think it was attributed to Nora Roberts, who said her secret to writing was, and this is a quote of hers, ass in chair. Just, you have to show up and just do it. And so I don't know, I just collected all those things. And then in terms of, and then I've always written and always liked the sound of sentences and stuff. And then you just start, I don't know, I started taking classes. You could certainly write without classes, but I learned to read with even more intent. And then just things like people would say, you should, at a scene, you should arrive late and leave early. And which puts you straight in the scene, because of course what you want to do is give all the background and lead up to it so you make your point. And then I realized that you could just drop straight into what the crisis, and the reader still can understand what's going on. I think the background, I think writing the backstory is important for me, because it's just an exercise, a writing exercise. But if you, without really knowing that you're doing this, you bring that backstory in, and it may just be a word, a half a sentence, 2 sentences, whatever. But because you know it so well as an author, you can drop something in, and hopefully the reader doesn't need more than that to catch up.
Jenny Dandy is our guest. Her first book is The Brownstone on East 83rd. She has book number 2 coming out soon, The Penthouse on Park Avenue. You have a thing for streets.
I know. That's one of the things when I was trying to figure out the title for the first book. I thought it'll be the building will be important, like where Isabel's trying to hold on to her brownstone. And actually the Penthouse is out now. So it's on bookshop.org and Amazon ebooks. But, and then so Ronnie and Frank and their other side, like Frank's partner and Frank's ex-wife, and they all go from one book to the next, but the crime changes. And so the new criminal is in a penthouse on Park Avenue, and allegedly he's a money launderer for one of the biggest cartels in Mexico.
You sound very organized. Are you a plotter?
I am not. I am absolutely not. I start with a beginning, middle, and end. Like, I know the crime, as I think about where I'm going to open, and then at the middle's got to be some sort of turning point, and then the end, of course, it's a crime novel, so hopefully we get arrested and they gather enough evidence to prove the crime. But in between, I've heard the term, so I've heard it in different ways. I've heard quilting, where you write vignettes and they're little quilt patches, and then at some point you've got to sew it together so it becomes a cohesive story. And so and then what you do, of course, is write these, of course, gorgeous scenes. Everything's perfect about it, grammar, punctuation, whatever. But then you have to throw it out because it's an orphan scene, or it just doesn't work. It doesn't work where you want it, or you have to go through and add something very major in. And for your word count, you got to get rid of some of those beautiful, gorgeous favorite scenes. But no, I'll start to write it, and then I'll go, I have no idea what's going on. I need to look at this and try to reverse engineer it and write the outline then and just see what it needs, where it should go, what these characters are going to do.
Does it feel like the characters take control of your story?
Oh, they do. They totally do. There was one time when in an early version of the first book where I knew that somebody had to go on an errand. And so I thought, oh, Ronnie will go that errand because I had to introduce a new character. And so I started writing it, and Ronnie goes through Central Park and sits on a bench, and I could not write her off the bench. She just would not get up. And so I was like, I left my desk. I'm like, I know, I can't write. I'm not a writer. I don't know. And I guess that's what people call writer's block, although other people think that doesn't exist. And so I left my desk and started puttering around doing whatever mindless task. And I thought, oh, Ronnie's not supposed to go on this errand. She's telling me that she is not going to do this errand and I need to send somebody else. And as soon as I did, I could write again. So yeah, they totally take over. And they're also in my dreams. I don't know about you, but I dream about my characters just come in and like they're all together somewhere. And I'm thinking, oh my God, how am I going to write them out of this? Oh my God, how am I going to write them into it? And then I go, wait, some of these aren't even my characters. What are they doing in my dreams?
What was the biggest thing you learned from that 2-year process with a mentor?
I learned everything. I don't know. I remember he always said, my mentor was Ben Whitmer, who's had a few books published here, but lately all his books are in France because I guess they love American noir. But anyway, he's very gritty and scared me at first. But I remember him always saying, start them in conflict. And I always think, because I had this whole sort of wandering, here's the backstory, and everybody's going, exposition. And I'm like, what does that even mean? And when you learn about show and not tell and all that, and then you learn you can't show everything. Sometimes you need summation and you just different craft techniques. And I remember there was one thing, this was such a good lesson for me. We had to prepare about, I don't know, maybe 800 words to read a scene from your book for this crowd at the book project. I don't know if there are 24 students or something, mentees. And it was 864 and I cut it. And I said, Ben, I do 864. And he goes, no. And so I said, what do I do? He said, bring it in and I'll take a look. And so I drove the 2 hours down to Denver and we had our meeting and the whole mentor group was there. And so he was talking about all kinds of other things. And I'm like, Ben, are you going to look at this? And I had the printout because of course I print everything. And he just glances down and he goes, cut those first 3 sentences. You're just setting up the scene. And I went, you barely looked, but he knew exactly. And that taught me so much because I thought I had to lead the reader in and I didn't. And he was right. And so he cut my words and it worked out. I think the other thing I really learned was because I went into the book project with the idea that I was going to write the best manuscript I was capable of writing. That opened me up for, criticism, but more responses from readers and being able to revise. And letting go of all these gorgeous sentences was really important, understanding how to do that. You can get rid of anything and have a better book.
We're both Scrivener fans, and I found it's great to have a little place where I can save all those scenes that I love to write, but just ended up having no place in the story.
And so I have this whole line of files on the left-hand side, and one of them's called Kill Your Darlings. And so anytime I have to cut a scene, my favorite scene, I love this, I throw it into there so I could say to myself, it's not gone. I could still use it. And I think there was only one time in the second book that I went back in and went, I better put that back in. I need to stretch something out or whatever. I needed that scene. But yeah, but you have to let go of them for this particular page, manuscript, whatever.
What attracted you to writing a series?
I just love the characters. I wasn't ready to let them go. I love my characters. I even love Isabel. And there are a lot of readers who've said how much they hate her. And I love her. I think she's great. But of course, she doesn't go with the series. But I just they're my friends. I love it when a friend of mine has read my books and I can then gossip with them about my characters. Say, hey, did you see what Ronnie was up to?
What has been the reaction to your writing?
I have one person who said that she thought it was too much violence and she didn't like anybody. But she's not my reader. I think she likes cozies and that there's no blood on the page. And I have a critique partner who says I don't have enough violence. And so some are your readers and some of them are not. But most people have, I think they're surprised. They would text me, go, I just read it. Wow, this is awesome. You did a great job. Who knew you could do that?
That must have been stunning.
It was funny. It was funny. But no, I've gotten nice reception. And for the second book, my editor said at Level Best Books, Sean Simmons said, I just love your writing. You don't have to do any of these developmental edits if you don't want to. But of course I did them because she had some really good points of tighten this up and slow this one down and maybe have this happen sooner kind of thing that made it a better book. And I just really believe in the more eyes I have, seasoned eyes, people who know what they're talking about, who can point things out, the better off the book will be.
Now that you've had experience as both a reader and a writer, what makes a good story?
Ooh, it depends on the reader. It really does. There are some people who just read for plot, and those are the Alex Cross, all the quick and very little character development. And there are other readers who read for character, where they don't care how much plot, or they're not paying attention to the plot. And there are other people who just read for language, where it's a gorgeous sentence and I'll hang with you for wherever you're going to go. So I think that's why that you have so many different kinds of things on the bestseller list, because there are different kinds of readers. And so if you know, as a reader, you know what you like, then you can go that way. And I've been trying to read for plot lately because that's not my forte. That's not my strength. I love the character-driven books that I want to understand plot and how all that goes together. But I think that what makes a good book? I think you have to make the case for whatever it is that's going to happen to your character. I don't know. I'm going to make something up, but you've got somebody who's seems straight-laced and completely upright citizen, and all of a sudden it turns out that they're the serial killer, which you can do, but you have to make the case for it. You have to say whatever it is that created the serial killer. He was a child. He pulled the wings off flies or something. But I think that's the biggest thing, is support what you're trying to have the person do.
When and how do you inject your plot twists?
I don't know. I just think I think critique groups are huge. And my critique partners came out of the book project, and I just really trust them. And there's no sort of ego. It's just like, we're all here to make it better. And they'll come in and go, nothing's really happening in this scene. Let's do something with this. And sometimes I'll consult with one of them and she'll go, what's the worst that can happen? How about death? So I'll go, oh no, because I hate having something awful happen to somebody. And just, I don't know. And I guess I'm not that conscious of it in some parts. I just know that things have got to happen. It's Carter Wilson says that he never ever plots, and he'll just open his laptop and go, okay, what's going to happen today? He says it's like TV. So let's just find out what's going to happen. And so I think some of that stuff comes just from that, if you're in the white zone of, I guess, the runner's high kind of thing of writing, or it just comes out.
How has your enjoyment of reading evolved now that you know how the writing is done?
Oh, I still sometimes forget that it hasn't gone from the writer's pen onto the printed page. I forget that there's a lot of revisions and all that kind of stuff. That I really appreciate excellent writing, a good premise. I loved Rob Hart's Assassins Anonymous, where the premise is that it's a bunch of pay for killing. They're killers that get paid to kill, and they're in a support group to a 12-step program to quit doing that. What a premise. It's great. And I pay attention to how they describe, like he's in New York City. I pay attention to how they describe that, and you're in that environment. I don't know. And Bill Boyle, of course, is in the South Bronx area. He just really weaves a good story. I don't know. I think I enjoy it so much more. Sometimes I'll Jordan Harper. Oh my goodness. The things that he writes. I just suck in my breath and go, did he really just write that? This is awesome.
So much of our experience as we're building these things through the barf draft, through the final revision, involves criticism. How have you learned to live with criticism?
I think first of all, we don't have an art until it goes through a reader's head and then out again. I think that like visual arts, you can objectively see that a painting works or it doesn't. But for us, it's just black squiggles on a white page. I think Ursula K. Le Guin said something along those lines, until it's read. And so I know it has to be read, and I have to hear how did I do my job? How does the reader respond? But I think it takes a while. I guess because I thought I wanted to write the best manuscript I could write, then I was open to the criticism. And sometimes you just have to go, all right, put that aside. That criticism is useless. There was something else going on with that person that day. And then you trust your gut. And one of the things I learned was that Hank Felipe Ryan said something like, no one will notice. That point where you're in your draft and you go, getting it ready for your critique group. And you go, oh, there's something wrong with this part, but no one will notice. And that's exactly the point where your critique goes, this is a problem. You've got to fix this. I don't know what's going on, or this is whatever it is, whatever the issue is. And so through that process, you learn to trust your gut as well and not be lazy. It'll be fine. No one will notice. And that's the thing they do. That's one of the things that I guess sometimes, like, I won't read any of my reviews on Amazon. I think there was one lady who gave me a 2, which was irritating because she didn't like the short sentences, or I guess I have some sentences that aren't full sentences.
I thought you didn't read her reviews.
Somebody read it and then told me about it. Even the good ones can sort of hamper you. That was one of the things I learned also for the second book. This was during the pandemic and shut down, and I had a Zooming critique group, and I thought, okay, I'll use my critique group to keep the pace of writing up. And I was just starting it, and I had the opening scene, and they looked at it, and they did all the great, wonderful responses to it. But the next time I sat down to write, I kept hearing that critique in there. And I thought, wait a minute, I can't do this. I need to do the first draft and then critique the second draft, or the first draft to become the second draft. So I don't know, I have to understand what helps and what hurts in terms of the writing.
Do you know in your mind who your ideal reader is?
Probably me. I don't know. No, I seem to result. I have one, like I just go, one anonymous reader is who I'm writing to. Maybe it's just me, but that I seem to appeal to. When the first book came out, I got emails from people my kids' age, and I got from 20s all the way up to 80s or 90. How old was my mother? Does she count? But no, her friends. I seem to appeal to all kinds of ages.
That's a great sweet.
And I'm not sure why. Yeah, I'm not sure why.
You're really not sure why?
No, I don't know why. I mean, maybe I don't know how. It's just like, how did I do that? I don't know. I just wrote what I wanted to read.
So why do you think you're compelled to write? Why do you keep coming back to it?
It's just in the DNA, I think. My mother always said I was writing stories as soon as I could hold a pencil. I think it's just something in me that is just part of, I don't know, why do we eat? I don't know. It's just, why do we listen to music? It's just, I just write. it's just a part of me. But I think that telling of stories, of course, is age old, from caveman on, or maybe before. You start out telling stories, I think, to make sure that people don't eat the wrong berry or fall off the cliff or something, cautionary tales. But then it's also the handing down of the lore and the history and all that kind of stuff. And so I think that telling stories is just innate. And then the writing, there's something about pencil directly to brain and now keyboard directly to brain that is just soothing, and it works. It just comes out.
How can people get in touch with you?
I've got, believe it or not, I have a website, jennydandy.com, that I need to update. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram. And I think Facebook is Jenny Dandy Author, and as is Instagram. I'm on Threads, and although Threads doesn't seem to like books that much. There's not that much going on with all that. But I guess I'm on X as well.
How do you manage all of that? That seems like a time suck to me.
I don't. I'm really bad at posting. I really have to get better at that. But yeah, you could spend all day doing that, I think. So I try to write instead.
So what's next? Have you got the next book in the hopper?
Well, I had a 3-book contract, so I did that with Level Best Books. So the third book will come out a year from now, and that is The Loft at Broadway and 14th.
These are the books: The Brownstone on East 83rd, and now The Penthouse on Park Avenue, by our well-seasoned and excellent author, Jenny Dandy. The website, JennyDandy.com. This has been a great conversation. Thanks for it, Jenny.
Thank you.
In Conversation with Terry Shepard is a copyrighted presentation. All rights reserved. I'm Lisa Davis. Join Terry Shepard next time in Conversation.